Welcome back, punters, to the Punters Academy. We're going to review the Ramek meeting on Saturday. Apologise in advance about my croaky voice. I don't know what it is, temperature change or whatever.
Not partying.
Certainly not partying. Don't do too much of that. Anyway, so Ramek Saturday, John, we sort of track a 6.5 on the shoot races and a 6.2 both slow tracks on the course proper. So touch better than what they reported it as officially. In terms of pattern, I thought that if there was one, shoot races were pretty fair in terms of position, where you could come from in the race. And in terms of the course proper races, then you did have an advantage, or some advantage, being closer to the pace. Obviously, inside lanes were compromised, as they typically are in the rail true position, especially when there's a bit of rain around. So that's the way I sort of tracked, John. Did you have anything to add?
Pretty similar. I think inside and run I've been pretty lenient to so far, just having a good look at them. And I think that wind out the back may have hurt the leaders a bit more. I just thought the races that looked like they were run a bit faster than it came out. So even Top Rank's race and that, it looked like those horses sort of running into that wind out the back may have played a bit of a part. Not so much from the shoot, but I'm just trying to be lenient to the leaders too. Even though Kiss the Bride sort of got home and a few of them ran well, I think they might have slowed the times down a bit.
You think it was that much of an effect?
Not huge. I'm just being lenient. Just thought it was just it just looked like they went visually faster than what they did. So I'm just saying that to me it means that maybe that wind just slowed them up a bit, so there was an effect there. And I did talk to Timmy, and he did say it was noticeable, the headwind out the back. So just being a little bit kind to them.
Yeah, there was definitely an impact, but I mean that excuse me, that comes back into your track speed number and obviously the resultant pattern or lack thereof, right? So
yeah, pretty right. I'm just races like the Kingston Town and that, where they've worked out the back into that wind. I'm going to be pretty lenient to horses like Crosstalk and Kings, whatever it's called, and Surefire up on speed. I thought they probably worked a bit harder than even the numbers kind of said. And
like in regards to Crosstalk, I mean, why didn't they go to the Cameron? Didn't it look a bit of a gift?
Yeah, I think it just completely fell away. I think they just sort of overthought it. Maybe just the wet track at their home circuit, and naturally, if that rating was correct at Newcastle, the inside tends to go off there. I think they sort of told them in the morning it was an 8 or a 9, and I know it was nothing near that. So I think that's why everyone kind of dodged that meeting, and then Saturday, and then they ran into Rachel King special on Saturday. So nothing, and obviously it was a much stronger race regardless.
Did they say 8 or a 9 in the morning and put it up as a 7 first race, or did they?
That was officially an 8. The first was an 8, and they upgraded to a 7 after.
And then retrospectively, another way to get punters completely shafted, because you think about it. I mean, this happens all the time, and it's an issue that I think we were one of the first to raise publicly many years ago, and that is that the stewards can often run a couple of races or even 3 races, and then retrospectively change the track condition for the races that have already occurred. So, going into that meeting, you as a general member of the public, you might have had a perception that it was worse, and then suddenly they're going, no, it's better.
Well, and from a setup too. So, say for argument's sake, I know they looked after the inside there a bit, getting ready for that meeting, but still, and then the guy came out and said something insane like, we used the middle of the track for trials earlier in the week, so that's chopped up a bit, which was insane again, especially on Newcastle Cup week. But, like I said, traditionally, if it's in the 8 or 9 range, you'd expect it to be pretty difficult to sort of lead on the inside. It ended up a more of a highway, and I haven't checked what the times say, but I'd be in shock if it was worse than a 4 or 5.
Look, the official times show about a 4.8 on our scale of track speed, and which I'm going to say is the best, obviously. The pace shape of that Cameron effectively was an average race, because even though they've gone out above par to the 600, they've come home pretty much just the same. So effectively, it was average pace. So that's what makes me think that the Cameron was a bit of a gift for Crosstalk.
Putrid race, yeah.
Talk's actually gone really well, considering. Anyway, we're sort of jumping ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, no, we're sort of talking about things we probably should talk in the questions. But that rating at Newcastle was terrible. I think it was a big factor to what made a lot of horses scratch and go Saturday, and I think they would have all liked to rethink it. Crosstalk especially. Race 1?
Not Ice Bath.
Not Ice Bath, exactly. No, they did the right thing.
Okay, let's start with the highway. Race 1 over the 1,000 metres. We saw Showerstar come back better, average tempo, but Showerstar has come back much better this time in, and which sort of all goes well. I mean, it's only had 5 starts and pretty much improved every run. So he can win a better race than the highway.
Yeah, really good ride. Like you said, it was an average tempo, but it was probably an above average overall sort of time. So they sort of ran fast time throughout for the grade, I think. So like the leader there's worked extremely hard. I think Custo up outside the lead, even though it was, as you said, it was average. They sort of went flat out for this grade from the whole way. The winner was really well ridden and went quite well. I could be forgiving of Custo, the one that's in front now. Just think if he's a better horse, if he gets a soft time of it.
Just in case you didn't know, punters, a kilo over Custo.
I didn't know about that either.
Well, I mean, this happens all the time now with these overweights. I mean, I don't know if people bother to factor them in. I do, but I'm not talking about post-race in the results. I'm talking about pre-race, whether or not you want to penalise a little bit for that, but it certainly would have made a difference to the result. Look, I thought that both Feel the Night and Solire were decent runs. I thought Solire was definitely the much better run, being on the inside. And
can we bag your mate here early? Like, he's in the middle here in the pink. He's ridden the horse okay the first half of it. Feel the Night. He's in the absolute unstuff-upable position again here, where he follows up the Crockett horse, and for whatever reason he misses the boat getting to the outside on it and gets stuck in behind here, and he's held up. And I would imagine that lack of loss of momentum, having to check off heels rather than sort of continue and follow it through, has cost the horse the win. So poor old Willie just can't take a trick at the moment.
Look, I think he's going. I think he's not going as bad as people might say. I mean, you can't compare the best jockey in WA and go, well, he's now not going as good, therefore, in Sydney I'm talking about, therefore let's pot him. Yes, he's made a lot of mistakes, and riders all have their ups and downs, but relative to Sydney's best riders, he's not a bad jockey.
And he's probably 20% down on confidence at the moment too, which is where you make the right decisions in positions like that. I think if you're riding with confidence, he's not a bad rider by any shape or form.
He's not.
He's just not at his top at the moment. I think he just looks a bit rattled, and the 50-50 calls, he's 90% of the time he's making the wrong decision at the moment, costing a few horses. Races that Solire was the one that came through underneath it with you. I can forgive this horse Robarge taken back from a wide draw again. If it draws a gate and gets a jockey change, I could be forgiving of it too. I think this form's pretty strong for highway form.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at Pike quickly, and I think on my numbers he might have improved a pound between last week and this week. I'm just double checking something here, John. Yeah, he has. He has. So, coming into Warwick Farm on last Wednesday, I've got him going about a pound better than what he was riding, for quite some time there. So it's not a big difference. I'm just saying he's not a bad jockey, but yeah, he makes some mistakes. Look, just in relation to that time in race 1, I think it probably needs downgrading a bit because it was first use of the track on a slow track. So, they don't get better. The track showed deterioration from race 1 onwards. Okay, so race 2, we've got the 1600 midway, and we've got an above average tempo early. look, by the time they got to the 600, they slowed down a bit, and quite a bit actually. And between the 8 and the 4, about a 5.5 length slowdown. So by the time they got to the 600, it was sort of just average. You want to walk us through this race, John?
So Navajo Peak's probably the one that does work the most in that part we're talking about. So it's in the white cap coming up outside them. So this is the part where we're sort of talking about might have been into a bit of a headwind too. So where they're going their quickest, this horse is working the most, Navajo Peak. It eventually runs second in the race. Its effort was pretty good, I thought. Mahogany, as James McDonald does, had the horse as close as he possibly could with cover. Just another perfect ride. I thought he was a chance of probably being a bit further back and standing him a start. So he rode it perfectly, as in, when the speed was on, he was back with cover. He towed himself into the race to as close a position as he could, again with cover, and then used his superior sort of turn of foot to get over them. Nothing could have gone better for Mahogany, I don't think. I couldn't make too many excuses for too many, and Central Sky sort of got up the inside late. Herb was a forgive, up 3 wide on the speed as well. I don't think that's his go. Diamond Diesel ran okay in the on its back there, had every chance, and this horse back here on the inside in Sargent's colours, the grey, just back on that inside section, poked through late and thought its 2 runs back have been okay. It can improve.
Look, for mine, I thought that Essential Sky's run was best in the race. Certainly in for its best prep, or this is its best prep from my mind, and up in distance won't hurt it either.
Yep. Can't knock
Okay.
Can't knock that. Especially if it stays in this grade. Holy heck.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so let's get on to race 3, also over a mile, and that was the benchmark 88.
This was a funny one, wasn't it, where there was no speed on paper, and then Turn on the Charm came out and said to be ridden more positively, and then Kiss the Bride trumped it and said intention to lead, I think, and it won the battle for the front. So a race that looked like it was maybe going to be run pretty pedestrianly. Kiss the Bride put a bit of spark into it, and the tempo pretty solid early, pretty weak late, right?
Yeah, above average early. Weak, yes.
Yeah.
You'd have to say the last 400 was one of the slowest on the day, or one of the 2 slowest on the day. The other coming out of the top ranked race. But the last 200 was particularly weak. Also, really, it was the slowest on the day. So, but I mean, that's not surprising. I mean, Kiss the Bride had, burnt the juice by then, and she just seems like a different horse this time, doesn't he? And back on these wet tracks, and
I think it was a really good tactics and ride, just to play into its hands of its sort of fitness levels and strength. And like I said, just that was sort of one out. I think if it had a sort of sat behind him and maybe tried to play the game cute and out sprint the Waller horses, might have been a different result. So I think they did the right thing, but definitely can't knock the effort, because it's the only one, or it and the horse outside the leader, that have done anything. The others all certainly had their chance, didn't they? Like got to the right part, had cover, no excuses for Caboche or Grace and Harmony.
No, and look, Beyond Stable's going really well there. They've certainly improved. They're another one who have improved over the last 4 or 5 days, obviously with those winners on Saturday, but things seem to be going well for them at the moment.
He seems to be very good at sort of the starter carnivals, having horses primed. Like they're not sort of stepping stones to bigger races or whatever. He has most of his horses that are, in this sort of grade ready to go, and just tries to sort of maintain their fitness levels or build on them sort of through the prep. But he has them ready first and second up, and he takes advantage of these early spring and early autumn races. Pretty smart the way he does it, I think.
Yeah, just doing a bit of analysis on him at the moment in regard to that. And what do we say here? Yeah, his best figures are clearly third up in the last couple of years anyway. But your theory is that he sort of performs or outperforms in the early carnival months, are you? So you're saying
I'm not saying they're first up or anything like that. He's been smashing them in trials too, just trying to get them ready. So even Overpass has run really well, I think, in the race we'll look at later. But he just has a lot of his horses ready to go earlier in the carnivals, tries to pinch, the races that maybe are a length or two outside of their boundaries, but he takes advantage of his fitness levels over the better horses that aren't quite ready. I think he won that Winx race a couple of years ago, and I think he's learnt to aim a rung higher with his horses earlier in the carnival and have them at their peak rather than try and beat the best horses at their best later in the carnival.
Well, his best month in the calendar is September, so there you go. In terms of performance.
September Bjorn. I reckon he would have been up and about on Saturday. I think he would have been pretty happy. He had his little box there on Saturday. I had a few reports that he was up and about after Kiss the Bride. It only got worse, so good on him.
We love watching those videos that get posted on Twitter with Bjorn in the room when one of his gets up.
Bloody oath. Tempo of race.
So race 4, below average tempo, John, here for the 78. And you want to walk us through your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think they even slowed down again. So as soon as Silent Impact got control of the race, he even slowed them up more. Probably a little surprise to most people that Arnold was going to be outside leader here. Couldn't find too many excuses for him. Obviously, outside leader's never the prime position to do the chasing from, but thought he was a little bit plain considering prices and expectations. Forgiving of Sindicato that got very keen after being caught wide outside them 3 wide here, even though they weren't going fast. I thought it sort of did a lot of work internally. You can see it here really pulling against the rider, and thought its run was better than it looked on paper. Ita, every possible chance behind leader. Did go back inside in the straight, but just had such a soft run that it was entitled to have a kick. War Eternal should have had every possible chance, but the rider sort of got lost here in the 1-1 and tries to go back inside. The steward said that there was a run there that he should have taken, and instead of taking it, he's persisted for a run outside, probably cost it the race. Forgivable runs or runs to sort of black book. Definitely Honey Creeper up the fence. Very good, and just peaked late, and so was Stray down the outside that was dragged out of the gate and just set an impossible task, and both of them just peaked. Cool. Yeah, both of them peaked, didn't they? And I think you'll probably side with Honey Creeper just because of where it made the ground as the run of the two. It's probably the one you'll get more upside out of too.
I agree, 100%. Bit disappointing, Arnold, really. I mean, the only excuse might be that it needs it slightly firmer, but don't know.
Yeah, it was a bit
maybe
tough, and it wasn't a bad race. Chance. I think that plenty of winners will come out of that race.
Maybe one more chance for Arnold in the right race. Okay, race 5 over 1,400 metres also. Fast pace early, slowed down a touch by the time they got to 600. Still pretty solid tempo though. And of course that suited the winner. Top Ranks, bless its heart. Cross Talk was a good run considering if you line it up against where President was in the run, and it, mind you, over President has to trial again before being able to race. So I'm saying that was a total forgive for it because it had trialled really well.
I thought there were some funny comments here. So Rachel King, after the race, what I think, she's got half misses the kick. She digs it up, clearly digs it up there. She's still digging it here, saying that she had no intent to take the front and the horse took control. She's still digging it here. At no stage she tried to restrain the horse, and the horse has bolted. Anyway, so she set a suicidal tempo for this horse first up, and can see how keen he gets. She comes back in and she says, "Oh, very disappointing today," which I thought was quite funny. And then the second thing I thought was funny, that even though the performance is good, is that they said, I think Australian Bloodstock, I don't know whether it was cheeky or what, top ranked best horse in the country was their tweet after the race. So maybe they just got a result, and good on them if they did. But I would say the race couldn't have been run any better for him, apart from being first up and being a fitness test. His quality just got him through. He just got the perfect run through Bowman. Is it Bowman? Looks like Bowman.
I think it was.
Yeah.
It was Bowman. It was Bowman. Yeah.
Perfect Bowman ride, up the inside, saves every inch, tries to get to the best part as much as he can without spending tue much energy to get there, and just sort of lets the horse do all the work, right? Get through the gears, and he's just a freak at that. Like I said, crosstalk we talked about before, exceptional effort to be up on that speed off that 30 days and kick on as well as it did. Yeah. But
the only thing is I'd say about that is that the first two were like in the division of their own.
Yep.
And once that happens and there's that separation in the field, then
It does help.
You-
So this is the horse that's
It
actually
helps.
doing the
It
chasing.
helps.
Yeah, and Purple Sector's then the one that's actually carting up, whereas what's his name? Crosstalk is slipstreaming a bit. I completely agree with you there that if he was up here, and it would be a little bit different, but because he was
still a good effort,
and the effort of this horse is actually better than it looks because it's had to do the chasing and bridge the gap. Whereas this horse, Lakeen, I think is the one that you can be a little bit negative about. Can't be negative about the winner. It was first up, had to sustain the run, did nothing wrong. Whereas this one, Slipstreams, Purple Sector everywhere, has every possible chance and is a little bit weak on the line. I think, definitely good, had every possible Lakeen.
Purple Sector, another a kilo over. Wouldn't have made the difference, but still. And
doesn't help, especially when a race is run like that.
Yeah, and Crosstalk, well, they've missed out on a Cameron Handicap Trophy there.
I think they would have won the Cameron.
Winner nowhere near the best horse in Australia, but handy, and it's only had 3 runs here, and it was a decent effort. But I mean, it was flattered, or not flattered, but it was certainly assisted.
It was flattered, literally, wasn't it? But it was also a good effort because of its stage in the prep, the weight it carried, everything it did. So I think it's a scary, like a dangerous horse if it gets into a handicap race or something. But taking the best on it, Weight for Age might pull it up.
Okay, let's move on to the T Rose, and of course, here.
I'm not watching. I'm just going to go down here.
Where are you going to go?
I'm waiting for Madame Pomeroy. I can't watch Madame Pomeroy. I can't watch it again.
Can't watch it again. Right. Well,
we
can talk about Madame Pomeroy in a sec. Jay Walder may have had something on it, and
there's a lot to talk about here. So yeah, tell us about the race. I like the overall picture of it. Pretty poor, isn't it?
Solid to above average tempo by the time they got to the 600, and I think overall, a bit ordinary in terms of time. Last 800 was ordinary, and look, we'll put it this way: the last 800 lead time for the Zoo Gotcha race, this race, versus the Bill Ritchie were virtually identical, yet they've gone out obviously a lot slower. And that I'm a bit negative on that. So I'm saying that Zoo Gotcha has rated down a little bit, and I'm not convinced it's really strong at 1400. I think Madame Pomeroy should have won. I think, it's all a game of opinions, but I think it should have won. And,
it was dragged back, number one, so the gate, but that's not kind of his fault, is it? But he does something weird in the straight.
I think the jock's a bit soft on it, like.
Tell me what he does here. Okay, so when I'm looking, so he's got the whip in the right hand here, and the horse is laying in. So traditionally, you will ride with the whip in the hand that it's laying into. So you're trying to get it to respond and go the other way. So as soon as you change the whip to the hand that the laying in's coming from, it usually adds to that issue. So for whatever reason, Tommy's got the whip in the right here, and the horse is making ground but laying in. And when he sort of nearly gets to the front here, so you can see there, he pulls it through to the right, he's hitting it, the horse is responding. And then for whatever reason here, he changes through to the left and the horse pulls up. So I'm agreeing with you.
I don't think he was showing as much bigger late. Look, the best horse won on the day.
I agree with you. I'm not saying he's pulled it up for the stable.
And maybe
it wasn't great.
It wasn't great, and maybe it doesn't quite win, but I think it
definitely died on its run, didn't it?
Yeah, it died on its run, but I still think it should have finished definitely much closer. I mean, it's probably a big statement to say it should have won, but
yeah,
you could argue that.
I think if you swap the runs, it wins by lengths, but that's not plausible either. My worry is that this race is completely putrid from a flight stakes perspective, which is kind of where everyone will be looking at this race from, I would imagine. And I thought that North Star Lass was very flat. I thought it raced pretty flat, even though it was up on a solid tempo and didn't look as good as it did at previous starts. Willinga Beast the same.
There was just North Star Lass, John. It had multiple sustained superficial lacerations of the knee hinds and the off pastern. So, that's not going to be a help.
No, absolutely not. And Willinger, but maybe even
Wolverine. Wolverine to me was just a run.
That's what I'm trying to get. So Willinger Beast and North Star maybe would have had a hangover from last start is kind of where I'm saying. So they were pretty fair. Zugotcha went poorly for mine, like every possible. How he can be 2-1 in a flight stakes seems laughable to me. And I'm agreeing with you that Wolverine was flattered, if anything, like towed up, got to the right part, checked for an inch, gets to the outside, and the lack of anything in this last section is just making it look a lot better than it is in the best part of the ground. So I'm looking away from these horses if I'm betting into a race like the Flight Stakes. And I think North Star and Willinger are probably the two that could improve potentially if something can. But sorry, Madame Pomeroy, if it draws a gate,
Look,
but it's going to run a mile too.
I'll tell you it wasn't a bad run. It was Renaissance Woman.
Which one? Oh, is it in the green up the inside? Yeah. It's a little sneaky one, isn't it? It was a funny one. It was one of Bjorn's too. So I just didn't know whether these sorts of things took away from the race even more. It's just doesn't look like a Flight Stakes winner was in that race.
I'm not a fan of it.
No. And that's like you say, like look at Renaissance through the line, up the inside in the worst ground is arguably the strongest. So it's scary. Anyway.
Okay, let's get on to one of the features, or the feature of the day, I suppose. George Main at Wait for Age. Animo gets the job done. Time, nothing special, below average tempo. Animo pulls a 3 out of 5 lane. There's a question on it later. Converge. T. Clark reported from the outside barrier that the gelding was obliged to settle back in the field in order to find cover. He added that Converge was disadvantaged by the pace of the race, which developed into a sprint home, and was also not comfortable on the soft 7. Now, the reason I read that out from the steward's report is I see there's a comment in there from Stephen Watkins. What was Clark doing on Converge?
Yeah, well, they came out with a change of tactics pre-race to say to be ridden cold. So I don't know what else anyone expected, but
that's right.
Obviously it wasn't its grand final day, and they weren't willing to chance their arm from the way the map looked, and it didn't go much good anyway. For mine, I thought it was probably entitled to finish the race off a little bit better than it did. I thought that bloody. What do you think about the not running Zaki? I know you were keen on Animo regardless, and you can't. Animo was pulled up lame anyway, but the way the race was run, I have no clue.
I was keen on Animo at the price.
Yes.
I'm not saying. Yeah, I thought they should have been further apart. You thought they should have been closer.
Well, just because of the way the race would run. Yeah.
It's
just a strange race to scratch from.
I suppose we'll never know. And to be fair, Animo has gone backwards a little bit.
But it pulled up lame, right?
From last up, but it pulled up lame. So you could argue that there's extra merit there. So what would have happened on the day, don't know. Ice Bath was a good run. Profondo, I think, needs a drier track. So I'd be prepared to forgive it. Do I forgive it? I know that it had pleased the stable going in, and it pulled up lane 1 out of 5, and Josh Parr has eased it down over the concluding stages. Certainly wouldn't be stacking it. Fangirl, I was a bit disappointed in.
Agree.
And Hinged, first time in blinkers, seems to have come back. Just as it's probably its best prep, or its best performance. And I'm saying on slow wet tracks, it's probably a horse that's going to be continue to be suited. But if we're going to get those tracks or not, I don't know.
I hoped he'd go a bit quicker. I thought that was his chance in life, Hinged, like at this level. Certainly eligible for easier and back to mare's grade or whatever. But I'd hoped he'd go a little bit quicker just to try and sort of take advantage of its one-paced attributes. And it sort of kicked on. I agree with you, went well. Considering Fangirl couldn't get past it when it's a sit sprinter. Certainly disappointing. I thought they were all pretty disappointing. Both stables have reported, Ed Cummings, that it was a minor issue that should be fine. And Animo, I think they've said they're not even sure what happened, whether it pinched a nerve or strained something. And, it's much better now, but they're still going to be very protective of the horse going forward. And he's a very valuable horse, and he won't race again until he's 100%. So, I don't really know what to do with this form. It just looks like it was pretty steady, wasn't it? It was just a race that's it's another one of these barrier trial races, isn't it? Like, what do you get out of it? Ice Bath's obviously the one that's going very well.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, Ice Bath doesn't win very often, does it? I mean,
No.
it's competitive. It's competitive, but it needs its birthday comes around every now and then.
And then it'll drop to, it'll start favourite in Epsom. Like, it'll drop to whatever it is, 53 or 54 in an Epsom and start favourite.
Look, on a wet track, right up there. Yeah. But anyway, we'll move on to what I thought was the race of the day, and many others. The shorts here are average early pace, but because they came home very quick, relatively speaking, it's really an effective slow pace.
Yes.
The Nature Strip. That's the way I'm reading it anyway.
Yeah, I think there were two. He looks better. His horse has got better and looks better and stronger, and things certainly went his way, as in he sort of half missed it, but then found the ideal position that he wants, just stalking. He never had his momentum held up at any stage. He was able to do everything he wanted to do, and when he's allowed to do that, he's very hard to stop. But he's certainly gone extremely well. I thought Eduardo was horrible. Jockey thought he was home halfway down the straight, reported straight after the race that the horse had a massive blow and seemed like he wasn't fit and he could improve for the Everest because of that. So I'm not sure what the stable did with it between the first and second up run, but obviously not a lot, just trying to keep something in the tank for the Everest. But I still thought he was very plain, considering a horse like Overpass was able to sit outside him, over race a little bit, then come back and beat him. And there was not much more behind it. I can't see horses like Marzu and maybe Mars Crusader. When you've got Anathol looking like it's the run of the race, that scares me a lot. So this is Anathol, which hasn't even got a Kosciuszko slot, let alone an Everest slot. Smashing.
Yeah, look, I mean, Eduardo's gone back a bit over 2 lengths for mine. I was a bit. This race was a really difficult race for me the other day to assess because of the question mark of Nature Strip coming back from overseas and a few of the other things I mentioned, and Eduardo losing Nash and getting Brenton, and then whether or not leaders would actually be suited on this day anyway. The question mark around Marzu, where was it at and how has it come back? Lost and Running's gone good.
Do you want to cover that question now? I know we've got a question where the stewards a bit harsh on Bowman.
Yes, they were. They were for sure. Look, they had. I think what Corey Brown said. They had to ping him, sure, but the horse's head was coming up, and it really wouldn't have mattered what he did. He did. I don't think he cost Connections $106,000 there, running 4th versus 3rd. But yeah, it was a good run after sitting wide, even though the track was sympathetic to the horses being wide. It's come back well. Hasn't come back as well as it did last prep, but then again, I don't know that it's, that's probably the worst track it's ever met on my figures. It's got to be one of the contenders, but I mean, if you look at the betting, Nature Strip, I think it's about 10-9 with the tab and in the Everest, and it looks hard to beat, but normally, look, I think it's gone into its last couple of Everest. Like it was 3rd up when it won last prep. It usually regresses a little second up. Look,
I'm harsh on jockeys. I can't even say that he's stopped riding it. Like, he stopped riding it so late that it's actually
so late. Yeah,
one stride before the post. He's doing that. It's
but
like,
interpreting the rule, they had to ping him, but I don't think it made a difference. So it was sort of like
I don't think he stopped riding it.
Catch-22.
I don't think he did. I just don't think he did. But anyway, it'd be interesting to see what happens on appeal.
Yeah.
Assuming he appealed.
Well, 13 days.
Yeah. Well, it's big at this time of year.
It's harsh.
I think Lost and Running certainly the only horse in the race that can turn the tables potentially with, and it needs favours on Nature Strip. Overpass deserves a slot potentially, and Anathol deserves a slot in the Kosciuszko off that.
Look, sectionally, I mean, Anathol ran the best last 8, 6, 4 and 2 sectional rating on the day, the way we calculate these sectionals anyway. Mars Crusader was a nice enough run there, sort of.
And that's that's carrying weight for age too, isn't it? Oh, sorry, set weight's penalty. So, but it still carried what? Anathol's carried 55. So it's obviously horrifically weighted and run fastest last 8, 6-2, 4-2. So
horrifically weighted when it comes to the other contenders in the race, but obviously it's getting relief. The weight for age.
Yes.
Yeah. But, where do they go from? Where do they go from this? And what happens to its rating?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, what will they do to it there? That's quite interesting because I don't think many horses would ever copped a smashing for running 8th in a Group 1, but Group 2. But
probably nothing. I mean, it looks terribly hard to beat in one of those races, doesn't it?
Well, you would imagine if someone's out there with a slot, it's the horse they're taking. Anyway, time will tell.
It is. Okay, so let's get on to the Kingston Town. Just get back to my screen where I was. Okay, they've gone out sold to above average tempo here by the time they got to 600. And we saw Allegron get the job done well. It seems to have gone to its best or close to it. Anyway, well exposed horse now. Beno looked like it was going to get the job done at one stage. Knight's Order was pretty solid considering it had all favours on the bias last time. It's gone back a bit. Stockman's gone pretty well, and Surefire might be a bit of a forgive. I think you mentioned earlier, John, setting up on the speed there.
It doesn't look his thing, doesn't it? Like it takes him so long to get to those on-pace positions. I think if they had their time over, what I will say, in my opinion, and again, it's a game of opinions, if they went back and it got the run that Beno did and the tempo was the same, I think it would have won the race and won the race comfortably. That's a big, hindsight thing. But I don't think this is the way. You just see he's never comfortable chasing the leader. He never travels. And I think he sort of did a good enough job to get beaten, whatever it is, 2 lengths, to say that he's going well enough to be able to improve. His last 2 runs for me are complete forgives. Timmy's absolutely sort of buried him a little bit by putting the speed into the race through that middle section and make him chase. Whether that was to Knight's Order's detriment as well, not really sure. He, like you said, he was so well placed last start, wasn't he? It wasn't not a surprise to see him regress a touch. And I thought Beno, for my opinion, I thought Beno was very disappointing. I think it had its chance to get past Allegron, even though it had a perfect run. Allegron got the right run through, that it was close enough and it was pretty weak late. And I think
it's interesting that Surefire's now had 6 starts in Australia. On mine, it's had 1 dead track run, which was a win, and it's had 3 slow tracks and a heavy track and a very, very heavy track at Ramek, 2 starts back. On its overseas stuff, I think it could be a better horse than the Dry. So as you say, it's a forgive Saturday. It's a forgive the previous start for sure. After racing wide there with the 2-1 SP or whatever it was. You can't sack it yet.
Well, look at him on the line. He doesn't give up. Look how tough he is. He's not weakening at all. He's just crying out for a bit of softer run in transit. This sucker Stockman will drive you mad. I thought his effort was not too bad considering he was the one who took off first and sort of circled them and whatever. But he's just a bit of a nightmare to follow. And as you said, I just couldn't see this horse getting a better run. You could say maybe it was a run short, but jeepers creepers, it's twice now for me that he's loomed up in under these circumstances, the Derby in here, where he's just sort of seen the camera and pulled up.
So what? Look, I think he's probably best at, or we might see the best of him at 2,400 metres. But yeah, you can't put Willie Pike on, can you, in the next start?
Mate, you just told me how good a jockey he was. What are you saying? He's improved.
I didn't say how good he was. I'm just saying he's improved. But yeah, I mean, you'd think that he'd go back to Brenton, wouldn't it?
Yeah, somebody else, I'd say. But I just don't know what he is. I don't know whether he's, like you say, what does he want further? Does he want shorter? Do they drop him back to the, to the Epsom more? Do they push on to 1.5 miles? I don't like to the Metrop. I'm not really sure.
I suppose heading towards a Caulfield Cup, I imagine, wouldn't it?
you would say that was probably plan 1A, but maybe off that they go, well, hang on, he's got no weight in an Epsom. They're going to be a fast run race. Maybe we drop him out there. I wouldn't say that he can't win either way. He's just a bit of he's a horse that I'm going to have to take on a bit, I think, mentally, because he just doesn't seem to, even when he has things go his way, he runs well when things are against him, and he runs well when he's got things his way, and neither way does he win. Does that make sense?
I wonder if, in a fast run race, another fast run race, backing distance with blinkers on.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, if he dropped out in an Epsom, and you would expect him to be strongest late, wouldn't you? With blinkers on, you'd expect him to run a very good race. I don't think he can win a Caulfield Cup, so I think if he was mine, I'd nearly have a shot at that title.
Okay, well, let's get into the lucky last over 1,200 metres, the 88.
Hang on, I'm going down again.
Here.
Hang on, going down again. I don't need to watch this one either.
Jeez. Christ, there's a couple of
bad beats before old John Saturday. Unloaded on Larkspur Run and Never Talk. I backed them both, so I just copped the double whammy here as McDonald just stalked my life and destroyed me again.
Well, Never Talk was a good run, and look, what do we do with Mautai? Forgive because of the slow track.
Look, he was just insanely short, wasn't he, in the early market? I think he's just a bit of a horse that's found his level to a certain degree. I don't know how you can really forgive him. They don't go quick here, do they? What's the tempo's quite slow, isn't it? Very steady.
Average tempo, yeah, steady.
Yeah.
Look, I think that the only reason you could forgive it, and I'm saying you can, is because it's a slow track.
Yeah. He seems a very good fresh horse too.
That would be the only. That would be the only reason I could forgive it. Look, I thought that a sneaky one here, beaten 6.5. I Am Lethal, who led, did almost the same first up last prep. It didn't lead last prep, but first up last prep on a heavy track and strikes a slow track here, which I don't think it's suited on. I think it can improve a lot second up.
I found a sneaky one beating a fair way, but I thought you found my horse. It was a different one.
Never Talk? Well, Never Talk was obviously...
No, the other one. They're the stablemate. So at the start, I actually thought I backed Never Talk because I thought it'd be in this out wide line. I didn't think it'd sort of drag back to last and go up the inside. Can't knock him. Once it was there, it was, and the option presented itself. He's had a crack, but I thought he and Kinlock, which is the stablemate, both drew very wide. Kinlock ends up last, and he sort of dragged it right back to get there. He then dragged it like for 800 metres to get there, tries to go for an inside run, sort of gets checked and peaks late. I thought his run was a complete forgive as well. But, yeah, this one's obvious, isn't it? Never Talk, very good. Larkspur Run sort of jumped in front, dragged back to sit 6 wide, no cover, and tagged the stablemate up. I think the stablemate's won by Act of God and the inside 2 horse. This horse is flying, Larkspur Run. He just needs, not Willie Pike, but I think if you swap the jockeys there, you swap the result. I think this horse is going really well, returned well, and I agree with you that I'm Lethal is definitely not a leader for mine. And
doesn't like the wet. So horses to follow, John. We can probably, unless you want to watch this again.
Kinlock was actually mine from this race. So
okay,
I never
cool.
get these ready.
So horses to follow, I'm going to say race 1, Solire. I thought it was, certainly a highway grade. It was a good run. Feel the Night was also a decent enough run, but I think it had the better part of the track. Race 3, I don't normally have this many. These are 2 conditional ones. Race 2, a conditional one, Essential Sky. Best preparation yet, needs slow and heavy. So that's the conditions for it, and up in distance preferably. Race 3, Kiss the Bride, conditional, wet track up to 2,000 metres in this prep. Race 4, I do like the run of Honey Creeper. I think it has come back very well and should be followed. Stray, maybe not a horse to follow. I sort of already tagged it off the trial, but it's come back well, and certainly up in distance I think will help it. Then we go down to I start if wet track and everything goes this way, but I wouldn't say really a horse to follow. Anathol, depending on where it goes, but once again, I'm not saying it's a horse to follow, but I mean it does look like a logical thing for something like the Kosciuszko. Definitely a horse to follow, never talk, and I Am Lethal, whilst not a horse to follow, can definitely improve a lot next start.
Honey Creeper for me, mare's race. It just cries like something like, I don't know what it's called now because they change the bloody names to races every 5 minutes. But a race like the Mire or whatever they call that mile race at Flemington looks like it'll suit Honey Creeper. I think he can win any race in mare's grade this time in. I'm going to be with the old negative, the negative follow on Zugotcha and Wolverine. I think they've been overplayed in the flight stakes market. I'll be looking away from them. Going to that race.
Putting him in the pink book?
Putting him in the pink book. And, yeah, I think, there's a couple of other horses there in the market that can run well. And I'm Walla. But, yeah, I'm just surefire. It's got a race in it. It's got a race in it.
Okay, there it is, punters. We'll be back after this show, of course, with a spring review with Peter Lawrence on a separate segment. Some good feedback there last week, so thanks for that. And any comments you've got to make about anything we do, please let us know, and we'll try to incorporate it. Okay, questions this week, of course. Top Sport.
About Top Sport first, because we don't have the question of the week this week, so you may as well talk about Top Sport.
We don't have a question of the week, but Top Sport, of course, if you don't have an account, punters, you need to get that sorted. I keep saying the same thing every show, but it's true. They bet you a fair bet, and of course, with the spring racing now, the limits are bigger, and of course you can bet bigger late, and even some of the Premier Group ones there, I think they bet up to 50,000 late. So don't think that that's going to worry any of our viewers, but certainly it's there for the taking. And of course, just give Tristan a call or contact him via email or one of the team, and they'll get you set up. Okay, so questions this week.
Jackpot to 200, right? Jackpot to 200 next week. The question of the week, so get them in.
Look, that doesn't mean that we don't like your questions, punters. We appreciate the fact that you sent them in. But look, we've got to be a little bit critical, and it was just hard to separate from what we had this week. So we're going to go into next week. Okay, first question from Ross is, why are wet tracks so unreliable for money and consistency? Not sure I fully understand the question, Ross, but look, there's obviously more randomness in the results. I personally think that from a betting point of view, on wet tracks, so slow heavy, I think you need to definitely dead and slow, maybe a bit less heavy depending on the situation, but maybe bet a little bit less at the pointier end of the market on those tracks.
Yeah, I'm with you. Slow to dead are the hard ones, aren't they? Because you get more variant in how the tracks play. Certain tracks are fine, like they're very consistent, but a lot aren't, especially in that range, and trying to nail down what the actual track conditions are and whatever lanes and bias are there, very paramount. So that's why it's hard to bet up and turn as much money over before you're confident in the surface. And yeah, so that really heavy, I think, is okay. Really dry, we know what we're going to get there most of the time. It's the gaps in the middle that make the most difficult to make early decisions.
Indeed. Todd sending in a question for you, John. What do you think about... Hi, John. What do you think has the most influence on the market late in betting, or who do you think has the most influence on the market late in betting? I suppose you could break it down into totes or fixed odds, right? So totes, obviously, your old boss, Data Processors, as they're now known, and fixed odds, I suppose, people like Sean and Kingsley and some others.
Yeah, I think like Betfair and things sort of shape markets, don't they, and sort of drive money like naturally. People follow them, but I'd say at the end of the day, it's totes definitely. Even totes don't match up, which is back in the day, fixed odds, totes, everything would pretty much crush because it was all one or two big syndicates that would control everything. They've sort of jumped out of the fixed odds and Betfair markets now, so I'd say totes only.
He's asking who do you think has the most influence, but just on your point on totes, I think that the tote wasn't controlled by the big players back in the day and was a lot there. I know that when I was betting in the sort of mid, I suppose, really betting anything of meaning from the mid-'80s onwards, I would say that it was a common strategy to check the tote price 2 minutes out. And so if it was, 11-2 and a 9-2 on track, and it was, say, 6-1 on the tote or something like that, you'd back it on the tote at 6-1, 2 minutes to go, and still get 11-2, 6-1 open at the jump. So I'm saying the tote, that's going back a long way, but I'm just saying that, that was, you could rely on tote pools as being very strong then. But there's no doubt now they're cast and they're completely dominated by the syndicates.
You would say that there's a big, like when big commissions came into play with the totes was probably when the totes started to become controlled. Weren't they? Like when they were betting them down to a level they were happy with and could get their turnover commission on top of that. So I don't know when that was, but I would assume that's when the changing of the guard was when it comes to the totes, because they've certainly got control over what they pay.
Look, from my experience betting on totes, I suppose I noticed a big change away from those early days, but for around 1997, 98, 99, 2000, most of my turnover was quadrillas. Like more, a huge percentage was quadrillas, betting multiple combinations into pools in batch bets of 400 at a time. And if I priced a favourite leg at, 80-1 in a quaddie, 50-1, I might get 80-1. Whereas now I might get 49 or 51 or, something much closer.
Far more educated, isn't it?
Yeah, and obviously the rebates have been a big thing. So I don't even know if the rebates were. Well, obviously it started having some effect around then. So I'm guessing the rebates would have been in around then. So that's when I noticed. And by, I'd say 2005, I'd pretty much given up on exotics. So I'd say less than 1% now of my turnover. I'd like to bet them more, but I mean, I'm obviously not going to be betting enough the syndicates to make it worthwhile from a rebate.
100% the same. Like quadrillas and things were my favourite betting options, and now pretty much can't even look at them. Especially country provincial meetings, it's a waste of time. Even if you bet with corporates, if they happen to throw a little bit of it back, you're basically betting against yourself, aren't you? Like it's a shame because they are great betting options. They're just not really available, are they? Not reliably.
If the great man Richie Irvine can get some traction here and somehow bring about some change to force the corporates to bet back to the tote, both in their win bets and best totes and middle totes and all that sort of thing, exotics, then it might be worth looking at it again, maybe. But I just don't know. Next part of Todd's question is the market as a whole, big individual punters, a betting syndicate or something else? I suppose the market as a whole combines the early markets right through to maturity and starting price. So if we break it down, early markets are, the semi-pros, pros who have themselves geared up to snip some of the early mistakes. The more mature markets, obviously in the morning, late morning, and right up to 20 minutes before the jump, and the very late movements in the last 5 minutes, then they're your pros, obviously. And Betfair is obviously part of that ecosystem. Apart from the challenges that Betfair faces, or customers of Betfair face with the differing commission structures between, say, your New South Wales and your Victoria and your Queensland and all that sort of stuff, then who knows what that's going to look like 12 months from now in terms of proportional balance. I don't know, John.
Yeah, I'd just say, like, all I would be confident in is that I'd say 10 years ago, just plucking a number, there might have been, and again, just really a number, plucking out off the top of my head, say there was in New South Wales, for argument's sake, 500 people sniping early prices and shaping
There's
the
not
market.
that many.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is, I'm saying 10 years ago. I'm saying now.
10 years ago, yes.
Yeah. saying now there might be 50 tops, and then like Betfair liquidity was far more. There was far more, so therefore it was more stable and made a lot more sense. Now there's no money there either, so highly volatile. What I'm saying is that far less people are shaping the market now, both early, middle, and late, and it's far more volatile. And to be honest, it's all pretty crazy because there's one thing for certain: the corporates really don't know what they're betting on. They don't care. They just bet a percentage that they're happy to bet through and bet clients that they're happy to bet consistently. And so therefore there's sort of, if there was a relaxation and things became more prosperous, because as the market sort of becomes less attractive, less people in it, it would be more stable again. But at the moment it's hard to really say, isn't it? Like there's just such little liquidity behind the whole thing of real money that it's anyway, I don't think there's too many people out there shaping the market's my answer anyway.
Late market, I don't think you're wrong. But all markets, I suppose, there's less players now, isn't there?
I've heard.
Third part of Todd's question, I've heard yourself and Paul say on the show to back this after the price of a horse has firmed sharply in a couple of minutes before the race, and wanted to know what you meant by that. Todd, look, it's pretty simple, I suppose, from my point of view. When the percentage of the firm during official betting, so during the NAP or the VAP or whatever, has firmed significantly as a percentage relative to its opening probability, for instance. So a horse that's 6-4 in the evens, that's a massive firm. That's a 10% firm in terms of actual probability.
And when you say they, I mean a number of things, right?
Yeah. A horse is 20-1 in the 10-1. Well, in terms of percentage, it's not much at all, is it? It's still significant. It's still 5%, but a 6-4 to evens is much greater.
And when we talk about, like I say, that could mean stable, could mean, I'm not going to name names, but like a syndicate could be, someone's, locked onto the horse and firmed it. No one ever really knows, whether you or myself, unless, see no one personally, we rarely know what's behind a lot of the moves, but someone has, locked onto the horse, or a few people, and it's they is not one person or outfit. I wouldn't imagine it's often different.
Okay, let's get on to Ben's question. When talking about forgiving or penning an underperformance, as you have for the last few weeks, do you refer to data to make that call or rely on your eye? So Ben sent me this question in actually for last week, but he missed the cut. Look, I say both, and I think it's also a critical analysis of the circumstances of a race. So, looking at the pay shape of the race, having an idea of what you expect to see, and then weighing the data and your eye and what you think the bias might be, if any, etc., weighing all that together, being able to identify horses that underperform. I mean, our database does automatically produce a list of horses that underperform relative to their expectation, but it doesn't necessarily, obviously, the subjectivity in terms of dissecting that to work out whether or not that was a forgive because of a gear issue or circumstantial, or whether or not the horse underperformed just simply because of its price. Well, that's something that you've got to do. Most times it seems obvious, but is there potential to gain a profit edge on the rest of the market by digging a bit deeper? Absolutely. The more work you do, harder you work, luckier you get. Pretty simple. Not everyone wants to be crazy like, in this game it takes a huge effort to make a living out of it, or even to make a profit. But if you want to make a living out of it, like replace your income, then you need to be putting in massive amounts of effort, and yes, you need to dig deeper. John, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I completely agree. I think it's very difficult to track historically forgives or pen runs or whatever, because, for argument's sake, like today, a horse like Essential Sky for you or Surefire for me are horses that we're forgiving of and think we can improve, but they've got to find the right race next start. So you've got to have to add that layer to then be able to historically, sort of work out whether you were kind or too kind or not kind enough to those horses. So it depends where they fall.
In our database, you can, as you know, John, you can black book horses, obviously, and there is no doubt, for all the conjecture out there, we have the best black book service. And I'm just going to throw that one in. But
what scares me now is that you're about to teach me something, the black book service, that I don't know exists, and it's going to piss me off because I should know about it.
Well, there's lots of stuff there that people don't know about because they don't go looking or don't do the work. But anyway, John, forgetting the black book for a sec, you can flag the horse. You can flag those horses like your surefires, and you can then go back and analyse those horses, say at their next start, and say to yourself, were they in a race that they could win or be competitive in? Was it totally against them? If it was totally against them, uncheck your flag. If you think it was suitable, then you would measure it, okay, or allow it to stay in the data sample for measurement. And if you think that it went into another race whereby it was a total forgive, so i.e. next start circumstances don't allow it to be racing up to its potential, then you can either flag it again freshly or maintain the original flag. So there's lots of ways you can do it to sort of weed out those scenarios whereby you think the horse was not suited next time out, and therefore you don't really want to count that as part of the data analysis that you do going forward when you want to resolve it.
I think the other thing that's important, and I'll try and find the horse while I'm here.
Well, just getting on to the rest of, while you do that, the rest of Ben's question was, have you ever looked at this historically in your data? Say, for example, percentage of times a horse has had a forgive run and then improved or decreased in rating. And I'm going to say yes, because that's part of what I do.
Yeah. So what I would, the only thing I'd add is when I'm being forgiving or saying inconclusive and want to giving benefit of the doubt in the run, I'm going to do that more in races that have merit in them. So good races that have some guts to them from a, ratings time, whatever it is perspective. I'm going to be more forgiving of horses that are sort of on the borderline. And, there's a race, the 24th of the 8th, that the first race at Kensington, where there's two subsequent city winners. And, is that the race? Anyhow, have I got the wrong horse? Golden City. Anyway, here it is. So it's the race after that. It's the race 2 on the same day. So the Zoo Tiger race, a race with a slowly run race, good merit in the last sections, and horses back in the field were a bit unlucky and sort of not suited by the way things. There's a horse in the race called Estiette that was sort of in restricted room, struggled to find, room to get going, and then through the line was quite nice. Went back to the country, out of a strong race, led, dominated, and won. I'm not saying it's it was a gimme, but it's a horse that was sort of in a very strong race, having its first start, and you can be forgiving of those more often when there is merit in the race. So if it was an average race, I would have been far less likely to look after a horse beaten 6.
So you can grade the severity or potency of those flags, though.
Mate, just stop adding things to things that I'm incapable of doing. I'm writing
this
down.
You're very capable. We'll do it off. We'll do it off there. I'll show you.
Black book. Okay, I'm writing it all down.
Next question from David is: can you both share a form factor that has a very high success rate? I'll start with one of mine. Any runner trained by a successful metropolitan trainer that has an optimum distance range of a stayer, who resumes first up over a sprint distance and then remains at the same sprint distance second up. Never win second up. Well, I don't know about never, David, but you can obviously do that type of data analysis, and you have, and you feel that that's a valuable tool for you, and I don't necessarily disagree with you. For me, look, it's probably a simple one. I don't want to give away too much, but a simple one is when the map and the bias align for a horse that's a genuine contender in a race. John?
I'm going to give a more simple one. Lay every horse that I back trained by Chris Waller, because that is the most foolproof system in the world, because I cannot catch that fella. Lay every bet that I have with Rob Waterhouse. That's been consistent for 20 years that I can't back a winner with Rob Waterhouse either. From a serious point of view,
you can. you can, but it will be by accident.
By accident. Yeah, from a serious perspective, I'm a bit like, I'm not a big IP person, but it is, as you know, I'm happy to share most of the time, but I think this one's a bit difficult. Like, you can, like the example given is a good one and makes total sense to me. So it's a horse that maybe a little bit one pace, looking for further, already had a run at a trip where it's nice and fresh, the freshness out of its legs, it's staying at the short trip. Makes sense that horse is not going to run at its best second up over that trip unless everything goes its way, like a mad speed with other horses. You know, it gets all favours is kind of what I call it. So it makes sense. I like your answer. I think there's many sort of systems that you can run like that. But to me, that's not really a form factor. I think what Paul said is far more of a form factor, like a horse that has good attributes. It's going to land in the right spot on that day when everything sort of, it's ticking a lot of boxes. And that's kind of the way I would say form is more a form factor. When you've got boxes that you can tick, and the more ticks in the more boxes, you know, that's got to be a good system.
Look, I think David's point's actually good.
It is.
The other thing I'll say is that most of my valuable form factors or attributes, or whatever you want to call them, elements, they come as a result of examining the things that you don't normally find in the public form guides. I'll say that.
Yeah,
so,
and the more you get that line up, the better you would imagine the strength of your result.
Well, just individual things. Like it could just be one item that might be worth a penalty of, I don't know, 7 or 8 pounds. One little item that you won't see in the public form guide, or
that extra pound you give Willie Pike this week, that's going to make you $1 million.
No, it's not. It's not. I can guarantee you, because I won't be backing him that often. But they're the things I'm talking about that I think are worth the most. But publicly, I think map and bias, when they align and it's on a runner with a genuine winning chance, they're the runners that you typically find value in. Okay, moving on to Jamie's question. Have the stewards lost the plot for suspending Bowman for 13 days? Yes, we talked about that. I think so. Yeah. I think they had to penalise him something, but yeah, 13 days seems a bit harsh. Les has asked a couple of questions this week. With Animo pulling up 3 out of 5 lame on race day, and now 2 days later being cleared by Godolphin's vet, how will this affect betting when he next starts? I don't know. I suppose it depends on what race he goes after.
If he runs again.
If he runs again this prep, I would say that there's the good argument for there being more merit in Saturday's run in terms of a performance rating. So I'm saying that the merit of his pure performance rating is probably worth an add-on or a bonus. But yeah, don't know how it's going to affect betting.
No, it's a weird one, isn't it? Like, you'd expect his next run to be where, I'm not sure, but sure something will make sense in a few weeks' time. But, you know, maybe looking at those early markets and expecting him to be potentially not there is not silly. If you like something else in the race, you may want to take advantage of him taking up a percentage of the market in whatever his next race might be. But when it comes to him showing up on race day, from knowing the history of Godolphin and the way they operate, I would expect them to believe he is 100% fit and well if he lines up anywhere.
Well, he's not in the Golden Eagle and the Cox Plate, right? So
yeah,
so far.
So Cox Plate definitely would be his ultimate goal.
I think so. Yeah. Okay, second question from Les. Of the horses not already selected for Everest, meaning the ones that haven't got slots already guaranteed, who on the ratings are the next best 3 or 4 candidates? I'm going to say the 4 are Overpass, In Secret, which is very doubtful. Probably, almost certainly you would think goes to the Golden Rose. I'd say Polelli would be Godolphin's pick, and Roth Fire. So there's 4, a list of 4 for you, but really 3.
I can't add to it, and especially when it's a question off ratings, I think you're much to give an answer that's far more definitive. And what scares me is there's 6 spots left, and maybe 3 of those. Okay, Rothfire, he's a bit hit or miss, and In Secret may not, well, most likely won't go there. So scary that a big race like this, there's only 12 slots and there's 6 to go, and we can find 3 that, okay, they might be okay, but then we're going to try and find another 3, but that wasn't the question.
No, and the last question, I'm not sure what Lee means by this, but this is all about nose margins or narrow margins. Interested in your thoughts regarding horses involved in photo finishes where the margin is 0.1 of a length. We go less than that. So anyway, would you expect at this point that it's pure luck as to which horse has won, i.e. is it a 50-50 chance each way, or does the horse's SP come into play and those with a shorter SP still win more than often the long race runner? Well, that's obvious. Horses with a shorter SP win more races than horses with a longer SP, irrespective of whether they're in photo finishes or they've beaten 10. Where's the horse in the best part of the track, worst part of the track? Did the saddle slip? Did the horse cop a check? Did he miss the start? Did all these things? There's just so many things to it.
My brain will break if I try and answer this question. Whether I can't read it again, let alone answer it. So I'm just gonna. I'm not even.
I want you to have a go. Come on, throw us a bone, Walter. What have you got?
No, I don't know. No. Toss a coin, 50-50. How could you say? As you said, it's a head bob. Look at Bowman in that race. If he gets the bob overpass and they don't even mention him sitting up 1 inch before the line. So. It's got to be, the answer has to be chance. It's but things come into, if you
he's talking specifically margins that are 0.1 margin.
That's what I'm saying. Like it has to be chance because it's literally a head bob. Like, you know what I mean? 0.1 is rhythm. It's and there'd be contributing factors to, if you wanted to extrapolate every single one, there'd be a reason why. But over a term of 1 million races beating that part, it's got to be chance.
Yes. Okay, so that's it for this week, punters. Thanks for that. Show's gone on for a bit, but we'll come back soon with the Melbourne Spring Review.
Get your questions
and of course, we'll be back on Thursday with Rapid Fire. We've got a little bit on this week, I'm thinking. We've got Rosie Hill on Saturday. What have we got there? Obviously, the Golden Rose.
Yes. Big meeting this week.
And the
Shannon Golden Pendant. They're the big races. And I'm not sure about Melbourne. I'm sure there'll be.
What's the Mornington? It's the Mornington meeting on Saturday.
Yep. And then you got the Sunday.
Standalone meeting, so it'll be the Ansett. I think listed the race, so we won't be doing.
You got the Underwood Stakes on the Sunday, so maybe we'll cover that. I assume
we'll probably cover the. Well, for sure, I'd say we'd be doing that.
Underwood Stakes, Sandown Stakes. Not sure what sort of races they are. Testarossa Stakes. They're the 3 stakes races.
Maloney. So Testarossa is a listed race. Sandown Stakes Group 3, Under Stakes Group 1. So Jason might have something for Mornington as well. Who knows? He's liable to come up with one out wide. Anyway, that'll be later in the week. Punters, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers, guys.